resident in Nyagen Village, Niani Constituency, Janjambure. First, who are those behind this statement? The two organizations behind this joint statement are Gambia Participates and Election Watch Committee. And a background information of these two organizations are as follows. Gambia Participates is a civil society organization focused on promoting fiscal transparency, anti-corruption, enhancing electoral processes and the rule of law to strengthen democracy in the Gambia. GB has been GB has been working on improving the electoral processes through citizen election observation, voter education, participation, and electoral reform. Gambia Participates is also involved in election observation within the sub-region of West Africa. The Election Watch Committee is a non-partisan citizen observation platform created through a partnership of 7 organizations with expertise in governance, youth participation, and gender inclusion. The EWC includes peace ambassadors, the Gambia PAG, Activista, National Youth Parliament, NYP, Think Young Women, Bekanyang Peace Hub, and the Gambia and the Gambia Federation of the Disabled, GFD. Since November 2020, the EWC has monitored elections across the Gambia, providing recommendations for improving electoral integrity. Peace Ambassadors Gambia serve as the secretariat of the EWC committee. Now, the background of why we are here. The Independent Electoral Commission, IEC of the Gambia, announced on March 3rd, 2026, that it will conduct a supplementary voter registration from April 8th to May 21st, 2026. By virtue of Section 13, subsection 2 of the Elections Act 2025, any Gambian is qualified or entitled to have their name registered on the register of voters in their constituency by the IEC if he or she produces either of the following documents. 1. A birth certificate. 2. A Gambian passport. 3. A national identity card. Or an attestation from an Alkalo or CFO satisfying that he or she is a Gambian. Therefore, it is mandatory for the IEC to register the name of any citizen who meets the nationality, age, and residency stipulated in Section 13, subsection 1 of the Elections Act on the register of voters if he or she produces any of the above mentioned documents is eligible to be registered on the electoral register by the IEC. In rural communities such as Nyagen Village, where access to formal identification remains limited, attestation by an Alkalo serves as a lawful and essential mechanism for ensuring citizens without government-issued identification documents or birth certificates are not excluded from the electoral process. An attestation document satisfies that an individual is a Gambian and he or she is eligible to be registered as a voter. Alkalo satisfies these prescribed attestation forms using the official Alkalo seal or the Alkalo stamp. Now the facts. The government of the Gambia, in its press release dated April 9, 2026, announced that it has temporarily withdrawn and taken custody of the Nyagen Village Alkalo stamp following allegations of a misuse of the stamp, quote, in a manner inconsistent with its intended purpose, end quote. The government reported that the governor of Central River Region, Usman Ba, with his deputy governor, engaged the Alkalo of Nyagen and other district CFOs in a meeting where the Alkalo confirmed that he entrusted the stamp to his son. As a result of this, the Alkalo seal was seized and, quote-unquote, placed in a secure custody. The government press release claims that the temporary seizure of the stamp was necessitated by the need to protect the integrity of the ongoing voter registration exercise in Nyagen Village in the Niani Constituency, Central River Region. The government in its press release also stated that the village stamp of Nyagen was entrusted to the son of the Alkalo by the Alkalo himself. The statement of the government, however, did not go further to elaborate on the nature of the abuse of the stamp, other than asserting that, quote-unquote, official administrative instruments belonging to the community and the state. And they continue to quote that no individual, regardless of position, affiliation, may use them for purposes other than their lawful administrative functions, end quote. Although the government did not state the reason for withdrawing the stamp other than it was being abused by virtue of the fact that it was left with the son of the Alkalo, however, from our findings as domestic observers and from third-party accounts, we have reliable information that the primary reason why the Alkalo stamp was withdrawn was based on political affiliation to the opposition. Other than the fact that the Alkalo may have entrusted the village stamp to his son, no other evidence or information of alleged abuse of or improper use of the stamp has been provided by the Ministry of Information or the Executive. It is worth noting that it is a norm and custom for many Alkalolo and Sefos in the Gambia to entrust their stamp to their most trusted offspring or relatives due to many factors, which includes but not limited to age, literacy, deficiency in the official language, disability, etc. It's also worth noting that Alkalolo and Sefolu and their immediate family members have openly supported and continue to support and campaign for their desired candidates, including the ruling party, while exercising their Alkalo or Sefoship responsibilities. This is a fundamental political right guaranteed under Section 26 of the 1997 Constitution. Now, our position as domestic election observers, in this case EWC and Gambia Participate, we state unequivocally that the temporary seizure of the Nyagen's Alkalo stamp is ill-advised, unjustified, potentially a violation of the law, and has the effect of depriving bona fide Gambian residents of Nyagen Village their inalienable right to vote. It's also our position that the action of the governor in seizing the Alkalo seal without lawful authority or grounds may constitute a violation of the constitutionally guaranteed rights of bona fide residents of Nyagen who are entitled to vote under the laws of this country. Firstly, the seizure of the stamp of the Alkalo will prevent many citizens of Nyagen from being registered on the voter roll, which is a violation of their right to vote as provided for Section 39 of the 1997 Constitution. Hence, the actions violate Section 39 of the said Constitution. It's important to note that the IEC supplementary voter registration, the IEC supplementary voter registration teams have limited days to conduct supplementary voter registration. In some areas, the distance to cover registration centers poses challenges to some people where adequate means of transportation are limited. For example, one of the closest registration centers in Nyagen is Kataba Alhaji Umar, where registration based on the IEC key movement schedule will only last for 3 days, which is April 8 to April 10. So, but if we were to go by that schedule, that registration would have ended yesterday. Failure to get registered means these eligible voters will be disenfranchised from voting in the 2026 presidential election. They will also be deprived from voting in the 2027 parliamentary and local government elections and any other by-election or referenda until the next voter registration. Possibly this could be in 2031. Secondly, we believe that the action of the governor can result to voter suppression, and it is an abuse of his office, those violating Section 39, the right to vote and be registered, and Section 222, subsection 3, which is the Code of Conduct on the rights of other persons while exercising official public functions of the 1997 Constitution. In addition, Section 26 of the 1997 Constitution, the fundamental political rights, stated that every citizen of the Gambia of full age and capacity shall have the right, without unreasonable restrictions, and it goes further by saying, on general terms of equality, they should have access to public service and they shall not be discriminated based on political affiliation. Thirdly, it is our position that the government in its official press release on this subject matter has not provided any legal justification that the Alkalo or his aide, which is the son, has issued attestation certificates to minors, non-Gambians, or any other person disqualified under Section 14 of the Elections Act 2025. The government also did not provide any legal justification that the Alkalo of Nyagen action in entrusting his stamp to his son, like many Alkalo will do, that his action is illegal. Lastly, any person or any political party who is satisfied that the Alkalo or his aide has issued an attestation to an individual who should not have been registered by the IEC, the person should duly present his or her objection during the sessions of the revising court, which will sit immediately after the draft supplementary voter registration list is published by the IEC. In conclusion, the credibility of any public election likely depends on the voter roll. As a result, no lawful or eligible citizen should be disenfranchised by any person or authority. The state and public officials must ensure that the non-negotiable right to vote and be registered, the political right and the right to access public service on general terms as provided for by the 1997 Constitution are always protected. Public officials must exercise their powers within the confines of the law and must not weaponize state authority in ways that undermine democratic participation, particularly against vulnerable rural populations. Our recommendation is our recommendation to stop the ongoing voter suppression in Nyagen, and as a matter of urgency, we demand that the Ministry of Lands, Regional Government and Religious Affairs, through the CRR's Governor's Office, return the Nyagen Alkalo stamp to prevent further disenfranchisement. Recommendation number 2. All disputes in connection with the supplementary voter registration process must be resolved through designated judicial process, through the revising court, which is the appropriate forum to challenge the validity of any individual's registration on the register of voters by the IEC. Recommendation number 3. We have long advocated for the removal of the attestation requirements in the Elections Act and made suggestions to the National Assembly on the Elections Bill, now Elections Act 2025, to remove the requirement, citing justifiable grounds, but to no avail. We once again call the National Assembly to amend Section 13, subsection 2D of the Elections Act by removing the Alkalo attestation as one of the ways of establishing citizenship and eligibility to vote in the Gambia. The government must make the acquisition of national identity documents mandatory while introducing seamless, affordable, and accessible means of acquiring national identity documents. Recommendation number 5, which is the last recommendation. Though it is not the fault of the IEC on this matter, however, we recommend the IEC to consider extending the supplementary voter registration days at Kataba Alaji Omar once the Alkalo stamp is returned. Thank you very much.